Greetings and welcome to another edition of Montpelier Connection. I'm Representative Mike Mrowicki of Putney, and today our guest here at the Statehouse is Representative Carolyn Partridge from Windham.
Hey Mike, how you doing?
Great, thanks a lot for taking time. And as many of you know, Carolyn is the chair of the House Agriculture Committee. So today we're going to focus on talking about what's happening and ways that we're trying to help agriculture, or as the department is now called,
The Agency of Agriculture, Food and Markets.
There we go, trying to look at the whole picture. One of the first things I want to talk about is if you could update people on what our Working Lands Bill is and what is it that we're trying to do to help.
Our Working Lands Bill is something that we instituted about 3 years ago, and what it was meant to do was offer grants, small grants, technical assistance, and then some larger infrastructure grants to help farmers basically either expand their business or get a business off the ground. And we had 3 buckets of money, and one of them was the small grants meant to leverage loans or maybe buy a potato peeler or something like that, buy a piece of equipment that would make work easier, expand their business. We have one fellow from East Montpelier who got I think it was a $10,000 or $15,000 grant, who bought a vegetable peeler, which allowed him, he was a farmer who grew vegetables but then processed them sometimes and turned them into wonderful soup. His name is Joe Bewley, and he's from East Montpelier, Screamin' Ridge Farm.
So there's a value added.
So what ended up happening is because he bought that $10,000 peeler, he was able to, instead of employing 2 to 3 part-time people, he now employs 9 people, and I believe it's full-time. Wow. So that was one bucket of money, and then a second bucket of money was for technical assistance, so that people who needed help maybe creating a business plan or putting a capital package together could get that help. Also, somebody who had already started their business and was maybe expanding, stepping up to the next level, could get help in understanding how that happens and how that works. And then the third bucket of money was a larger pot of money for infrastructure grants. Black River Produce got one of those to help with their meat packaging. So it's an investment like that is a little bit more expensive, but also then increases expands the economic output. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
we're not just talking about dairy when we talk about agriculture in Vermont now, are we?
No.
Really, the diversification is happening.
Yeah. Many smaller diversified farms, but dairy is still a part of it. We just heard recently that there are quite a few more farms that are actually taking their milk and processing it right there. They're pasteurizing, processing, mm-hmm. and making all sorts of dairy products. But a lot of the farms that we're seeing sprout up are things like vegetable farms and people who are raising beef or sheep. And there's a great farm on the western side of the state where this fellow brings in calves in the spring, and he raises them and then basically has them slaughtered in the fall. He doesn't overwinter. They're all pasture grass-fed, very healthy meat, and he has a huge delivery route that he heads down to Massachusetts and the Cape and delivers a lot of that, and also sells in-state to Vermonters.
Yeah, I was wondering how far he would have to go to make his market.
Yeah. So it's great news, in terms of diversification and feeding Vermonters as well as our general region.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned milk before, and are we doing something with raw milk this year?
We're taking testimony on a raw milk bill there were some policy changes that were made by the Agency of Agriculture, Food and Markets that really disturbed some of the Tier 2 producers. We have 2 tiers of raw milk producers. The Tier 1 does not have as many rules and regulations about their practices. They are allowed to sell a smaller amount of milk every day. The Tier 2 folks are, and I'm not going to remember the exact numbers, but I think they can sell up to 280 quarts per week. They have added vaccination requirements and testing requirements and sampling requirements, and but they are allowed to sell, deliver milk to farmers markets now. They can deliver them to people, deliver milk, prepaid milk to people's homes, and we
like the old milkman.
Like the old milkman, exactly. They are when we expanded our rules a couple of years ago. People became very interested in becoming Tier 2 producers, and we started with 1 or 2 producers, and then we were up to 7 or 8, and then the agency passed this policy change, which sort of put the kibosh on some people, and so we're taking a really good look at those policy changes, and we may, in fact, make some changes in legislation just to bring us back to the old rules. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, when we passed the raw milk bill originally several years ago, there was some concerns that we might run into some health problems. Have we heard of any problems?
No.
Yeah.
No.
So.
It's really interesting. It's our understanding that there have been no health concerns around raw milk, and as a matter of fact, I just heard about some people who were made sick by ice cream made out of pasteurized milk. Now, I'm not saying that there isn't risk, but it's very important that people be very careful and be aware of the fact that that if milk is handled improperly, it can cause illness. So I think the education piece here is very important so that people will stay well. Yeah.
Where are we heading in ag? And one of the reasons I say this is we're starting to see a generation of farmers that started 20, 30 years ago that are starting to look towards retirement.
Yeah.
Locally, Paul Harlow is someone who
that's right.
been farming for a long time, created an incredible operation, and he's starting to look at the next step. And his son, Evan, is interested.
What's interesting about the Harlow situation, and I used to work in the fields at Harlow's, Paul has really put together a wonderful succession plan. And not only is he including his own son, Evan, but 3 other young men who have, and so it's really quite exciting.
Yeah. Are other farmers running into problems, though, setting up a succession plan?
Well, we hear about people being concerned about it. And, it's one of those things where, it's you sort of have to make the move yourself. One of the people who was on my committee last biennium, Will Stevens from Shoreham, is confronting that very sort of thing.
Vegetable farmer.
Organic vegetable farmer, Golden Russet Farm in Shoreham. And he is having to make, some plans for the future. And I'm not sure that he's figured it out. He has 3 children, and I'm not sure if any of them are interested. At one time, I think that maybe one of them was. Yeah. But, so what do you do then?
Yeah, it's a challenge to...
And our dairy farmers, too. I think the average age of dairy farmers is probably in the 50s or 60s. So
I know in Westminster, Sean Goodell is very active, and his brother is as well.
Yeah.
I don't know where Clayton is in terms of that, but that's a family that's been in the dairy business for quite a while, farming for a long time. But,
and it's one of those things where if you have a job, a regular 9-to-5 job that you go off to, your company makes those choices. And when you're a farmer, you're self-employed, and you have to think about that. And frequently for farmers, their retirement package is their land.
Yeah. Yep.
And so there's another challenge, because frequently young people who are getting into farming don't necessarily have a whole lot of capital to invest in land.
Yeah.
And the farmers need the money in order to retire.
Yeah.
So it's something we've actually talked about. And one thought was to potentially allow farmers to continue to live in their homes and what have you, but to potentially rent or lease their land to one or more farmers, young farmers, in order to do what they would like to do.
Yeah.
So there's some thought behind it, but there's no easy answer at this point. Yeah.
As we look again to the future, though, in terms of agriculture for Vermont, many people looking at creating sustainability have wanted to get to the point where as a state, we can feed ourselves. How close or far away are we to that?
It's a little hard to judge.
Yeah.
I don't think it's impossible, but for instance, there are some staples that people have grown used to, like flour.
Yeah.
and our citrus fruit, and things that we're not able to grow in our own state yet.
Yeah.
But I think that it's really hard for me to say how far we are away from that, because a lot of what we produce is shipped to other states.
Yeah.
Paul Harlow's a great example. A lot of his stuff goes down to Boston and around. So, but I think that it's a good topic to be thinking about.
Yeah.
Food security, biosecurity.
Yeah. In terms of organic, does that aspect of agriculture continue to grow, or has it leveled off, or and how are the markets supporting that?
I am not, I don't have numbers, but anecdotally, I would say that organic is increasing.
Yeah.
It may not be increasing at the same rate it was 10 or 20 years ago, but I think it still continues to. People are concerned about what they're putting in their bodies, what they're eating, and they feel that organic is the way to go.
Yeah. And even with dairy?
Yes. Yeah.
Now, in the last session, one of the big things that your committee did some great work on was the GMO labeling.
Yes.
Year later, where's that at?
We have been taken to court. The state of Vermont's been taken to court by a group of associations, including the National Grocers Association, the Snack Foods Association, the International Independent Dairy Farmers of America, and the retailers. And right now, I haven't had an update since the beginning of the session, but the last I knew, we were in discovery with that.
Yeah.
So there have been various motions to dismiss, and but I think that lawsuit is going forward.
So this may be a very long, protracted process.
I was indicated to me that it's going to probably be 2 or 3 years. Yeah. Yeah. I hope we prevail.
I hope so too.
Yeah.
It's something people want.
Yes.
In this country, certainly they want it in Europe and in Asia. So.
Well, the good news about this is that the more we talk about it, even if we were to lose the lawsuit, the more we talk about it, the more people become aware.
Yeah.
And they're thinking about it. So, we make progress sometimes in small steps.
Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely. Anything else in ag we should know about that you're working on or hope to be working on? And each committee has a lot of bills that are proposed.
Right.
We don't get to all of them.
Well, we did a bunch of work. In fact, the majority of this session was spent on the water quality bill, which we worked in conjunction with Representative David Dean and his committee, Fish, Wildlife, and Water Resources. And we are in the process. It's now gone through judiciary, and it's in Ways and Means, and I think that they figured out a funding source for it, and it's going to go up to appropriations next. But it won't be out on the floor until after the budget, and that is in a week or so.
It's one of the signature bills of the session, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And at the end of this, very end of the session, it will be about the last thing we do.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of talk around that focuses on Lake Champlain, but it affects us in the Connecticut River Valley as well, doesn't it?
It does, because ultimately, the Connecticut River has a TMDL, a total maximum daily load, which is basically a plan. It's a roadmap.
Yeah.
But the difference between our lakes, like Lake Champlain, Lake Memphremagog, Lake Carmi, is that the TMDLs for those lakes are for phosphorus, and the TMDL for the Connecticut River has to do with nitrogen.
Yeah.
So the states that right now that are involved in the TMDL for the Connecticut are, I believe, New York and Connecticut. But it's working its way north, and the EPA has jurisdiction basically over our NIPD's, the permits that all of our wastewater treatment plants get. And so they are going to be working with our treatment plants to reduce nitrogen. And in fact, they turned down the plan for Hartford, which is north of us on the river.
Hartford, Vermont.
Hartford, Vermont, yes, and asked them to go back to the drawing board, I think, to make some more nitrogen reduction. But it's important because what's ending up in the Long Island Sound is a huge dead zone.
Yeah.
Which if you look at not satellite maps, but aerial maps, you can see this outrageous dead zone there.
Yep.
So
there is damage being done.
There is damage, yeah.
Well, appreciate you taking the time.
Well, it's always a pleasure to do this. Yeah.
Well, good. And thanks for all your work on behalf of agriculture in the state of Vermont.
Thanks, Mike, and thank you, too.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Yeah.
And thank you for watching, and thanks to all the folks back at BCTV for helping make this possible and bringing our work closer to you. Bye-bye now. And welcome to another edition of Montpelier Connection. Thank folks at BCTV for bringing our work to you from Montpelier back home. This is State Representative Mike Mrowicki, and today we have Brattleboro Representative Val Stuart.
Hi, everybody.
Good
Thanks
morning.
for having me this morning, Mike.
Yeah. It's early in the morning here at the Statehouse, and
Yes.
we're getting ready for another day. It's a Friday, right after crossover, so it's been busy.
Absolutely.
A lot of work on the floor, starting to get bills over to the Senate, and then we'll start working on the bills that the Senate sends over to us. How's the session going so far?
Very good, very good. I'm on the Commerce Committee, and I'm really enjoying that after serving for 4 years on the Education Committee. Commerce has been a nice switch.
Yeah. And in terms of big things, everybody's talking about the budget crunch this year. How's that affecting your committee?
Well, actually, what I'd like to share with your viewers, Mike, is the fact that I think the House Appropriations Committee is doing a really great thing this year, insofar as they've invited every committee, whether they really control the money or not, as is the case with transportation and education, to really look carefully over their portion of the budget and to send recommendations about what their committee feels is kind of sacrosanct in terms of the portions of their budget that if we can retain them, we will. So interestingly, my committee, of course, we feel like everything we work on is important, especially in terms of economic development, because our state really needs to increase the amount of revenue it brings in, which is, a problem. And so the things that we prioritize were basically workforce development in terms of adult technical education, workforce training, and dual enrollment. We also felt very strongly, and we said as much in this memo of our preferences to the House Appropriations Committee. We spoke very strongly on behalf of Marketing Vermont as not only a great place to recreate, but also as a great place to live and do business.
Yeah.
So we were very much in favor of, the governor had a proposal, and we agree with it, to take 15% of any overage in the rooms and meals tax in 2016 and apply it toward a marketing campaign that would position Vermont more strongly as a great place to, found a business, do business, and live. We really need to stem the tide of exporting our young people out of state, as you well know.
Yeah. Now, I've heard from a few people who are concerned that tourism and marketing is going to get a big budget cut. What are you hearing about that?
We actually heard yesterday that, at least the marketing campaign funding, the proposed funding, which would only come from the general fund if the general fund could support it in 2016, that was, as of yesterday, still in. But it's hard to tell what's going to happen at the end of the day.
I know it's a good investment.
It's a great investment. And
you have to spend money to make money.
Absolutely.
Like any investment.
Absolutely, Mike. So, so we're hopeful that stays in because we really need to bring young people to the state and to bring people with ideas who want to live here and found businesses here and create jobs here.
Yeah. No, is it government's job to create businesses, to create jobs, or just to create the circumstances, provide infrastructure?
Yeah, that's a...
How is your committee looking at that?
That's a great question. I think it's really... our committee feels it's our job as a committee to create the environment where people can found businesses and can, create jobs. So we are trying to create an environment that is supportive of job creation by, keeping taxes down and having incentives like an entrepreneurial lending program and the Vermont Economic Growth Incentive Program, different supports that help businesses get on their feet and running.
Sure. Now, what about a situation like this? I don't know if you know Michael Knapp, Green River Software.
Oh, okay.
They have some pretty big contracts.
Okay.
They've got a big contract with Starbucks nationally.
Okay.
I think they do their customer service. They're big
Okay.
writing software for the city of Philadelphia
Sure.
to track health outcomes. But he's got an office right downtown Brattleboro, but he's also had to open an office now in Cambridge, Mass, because he's not finding the kind of people he needs to write code for him.
Right.
What would you say to somebody like him?
Well, the Commerce Committee actually, this second half of the session, we're going to be working hard on an economic development bill that, as I said earlier, we really are interested in workforce development and retaining the funds to basically train workers to do jobs like the ones that Mike needs. So basically that kind of information technology and job training is front and center in terms of the state, the Agency of Education, as well as the Department of Labor, I was going to call it DOL. Basically, they are very aware of the fact that people need people who are trained in those kinds of skills.
Sure.
So we're trying to address that need because that's one of the needs we've heard in a lot of testimony this the first part of the session was about the need for people with such training to do the jobs they have here.
Yep.
So we hope to address that challenge.
And certainly the kind of businesses and people we want to
No
support
question.
here.
Green, clean, high tech,
You bet.
young.
There's actually just in the one building on 167 Main. I think there's 3 different software developers in that building.
Oh, yeah, cool.
And, one of them, who used to work for Michael, I think all he does now is create apps for Apple.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I know, it's so exciting. And there's talk of starting, and I think it's going to start, David Bradbury, the Vermont Center for Emerging Technologies.
Yeah.
He was in our committee talking about this sector of business, and he was going down to Brattleboro, and I think they're founding an accelerator. They're going to get space. I think the space will be donated, is my impression, and then it'll be a place where young people with such skills can congregate and, start kind of generating some, nucleus of activity. So, that's a very promising area for our state. High tech, actually, it's kind of amazing. I mean, we're really moving into Vermont as a state of being much more innovative and digital and information technology, and that's part of what we need a marketing campaign to do, is reposition our state so that people don't just think of all of the wonderful things we want to have and maintain, like our agricultural sector and our fine foods and all of that, but also information technology and all the emerging technologies.
Yeah. Which leads me into the question about telecom infrastructure.
Yeah.
And if people don't have high-speed broadband,
True.
Some of these are home businesses.
No question. Yep.
They're not going to be able to, wherever they're located, if they don't have the high speed. Now, we've built out quite a bit.
Absolutely.
But we still haven't gotten every house. And some places don't have real high speed. So is that something you're talking about?
Yeah, so basically it's going to come to the House floor soon. Right now it's in appropriations, but we have a bill, H117, and it's all about building out broadband and telecommunications technology in unserved and underserved areas.
Yeah.
So this H117, actually what we did is we put the VTA, the Vermont Telecommunications Agency, under the purview of the Department of Public Service, because they were handling a lot of that stuff already anyway. And so they're basically in charge now of working on this problem in terms of building out broadband to underserved and unserved areas. And what we did also, which is pretty cool, is we came up with a board that basically will be made of people from the private sector, division of, and we're calling it, what is it called, this board? I was going to look it up. Telecommunications and Connectivity Board, and they are going to advise basically this telecommunications authority to, on the distribution of grants, help them designate where those grant and funding areas, those grants will go to, and that sort of thing. Also building out infrastructure that can be shared by multiple providers and things like that. So we actually have a pretty good infrastructure now on its way to really addressing that problem. And the standards are always increasing in terms of the megabits and that sort of thing, but we're really trying
speeds
to...
of what is considered high speed? Yeah.
Exactly. So,
and is cell coverage included in that too?
Cell coverage is included in that too. So we're hoping to, I know people in your area still have, in Putney, still have some challenges.
Yeah, you bet we do.
Yeah.
We think we've got a plan that Southern Vermont Cable's working on. It's being engineered now, and supposedly once the weather breaks, they'll start being able to pull cable. But cell coverage is still spotty, and that's a double-edged sword, though, because 75% of Vermonters have cell phones, but probably none of those people want it near their house.
Right.
When you think about a tower, so that's the challenge of how do you site towers for cell phones.
I know.
Well, nobody wants the cell phone towers.
I know. We're actually going to get one put on our street, on Meadowbrook Road in West Brattleboro, but the people whose property it'll be on have said, I guess they want...
And I know I bicycle out there.
Yeah,
I know there's some dead zones out there that you really
question.
need coverage. And it's actually a public safety concern, too.
Yeah,
It's not
absolutely.
just a business concern.
Absolutely, yeah. So that was one of the real nitty-gritty bills we worked on. It'll come to the floor soon and bring us, help us make progress on this really important.
You bet.
We heard a lot of testimony about how important it is for people wherever they live to be connected.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Any bills you have that you're hoping to get through this, either this or next year in this session?
One bill that I'm working on that I met with people yesterday was a bill about how to use our technical and career centers more effectively to address the whole workforce development area. So Jean O'Sullivan and I, both of us are on the Commerce Committee. We hope to roll that into hopefully this round of our economic development bill this session. So that one I'm working on. I'm also working on one for a web, let's see, how do you say this? Act 250, a web portal where you can basically go and you can see every step and where your application for the Act 250 process is. We heard a lot of testimony from people that basically the process impedes, as I'm sure you well know, business is expanding in Vermont. So we want them to expand in a way that conforms with our,
Our environmental protections, which are actually usually the first driver that brings people to Vermont, is our environment. So.
Exactly, but we don't want to impede, business development that we think is positive for the state.
I know the Secretary of State has a good website.
Absolutely.
If you're starting a business, you do everything online. You can see where it's happening. Is that the kind of thing you're
That's
talking
exactly the kind of thing, and actually we had a great presentation by the Secretary of State's office, and it's supposed to make it much easier for businesses to file and to all the appropriate paperwork for being founded or established, and ongoing business and that sort of thing. Yeah, it's a very good. So the easier we can make it on business, the better. We hear a lot, Vermont needs to be more business friendly, and we're cognizant and very respectful of that. So,
Any other big bills that you're looking at this year?
We on the Commerce Committee, we're really going to be doing the economic development bill. We're also going to be doing a whole piece on the development of the 21st century workforce in terms of we're seeing a lot of what's the definition of independent contractor, who's responsible for carrying what in terms of unemployment and disability coverage. So we're looking carefully at that. That's, I think, another area we're going to cover. And workers' compensation, I think we're going to be doing some more on that as well. So those are three areas. Commerce Committee, we oversee the Department of Financial Regulation and Agency of Commerce and Community Development and a number. So we basically deal with a lot of nitty-gritty oversight as well. So, I think those would be the things.
Well, I know you're on board with this, but I know that child care is an economic driver that we don't talk about a lot. But especially for women and families to be in the workplace,
absolutely,
they need dependable child care, and I just want to keep putting in a plug for that. I know you're aware of it.
Absolutely. I remember moving to Vermont and wondering, in New York I had a nanny because I had a full-time job and my husband had a full-time job. So when I first had my kids, and here it was like, could I afford to do work in the nonprofit sector and pay someone to take care of my children, and it was really a challenge. So so I'm very, very supportive of that, and I think making the economic environment more mother-friendly is really a priority.
You bet. So, I think we have more working mothers in the workplace than any other state as a percentage of our population.
It's exciting.
We certainly need to keep supporting
them.
that.
Absolutely.
It's another attraction to younger families coming here. If we don't have the child care for working parents, it's going to be a big.
We need universal child care.
You bet.
Universal health care, universal child care. I think those are great goals to strive for.
And good schools.
Absolutely.
So you have town meeting tomorrow in
Yes, we have
Brattleboro?
town meeting tomorrow. So Molly and I and Tristan and Senator Ballant and possibly.
That's right. You have a Brattleboro senator.
Yes,
That's
exactly.
Great.
We'll be there, and we look forward to seeing everyone.
And she's doing great, isn't she?
Oh, she's amazing. She's just wonderful.
It's been great to work with Senator Ballant.
She is she's a real dynamo. So, she's a real asset to our caucus. So, Yeah. So
Well, thanks for taking the time.
thank you very much,
Yeah.
Mike, and thank you very much. It's great serving with wonderful people like you on the Windham County delegation. We're really lucky. We have a great
We
delegation.
really do have a good delegation.
with
Work
a lot
together.
of different talents, and we all, for the most part, a lot of us are on all different committees, so we
Yeah.
can really share broad knowledge of what's going on here in the legislature.
And it's helpful too, I consider the governor still a part of our delegation.
No question.
And he's been working right with us, starting with, that big push to get the Brooks House back on.
Oh, that's been
And
a
without
great-
him, there's
That-
that group has been great downtown, but without the governor's push to get the colleges in there, that might not have happened.
It's true. He really remembers his southern roots and southern Vermont roots, that is. And we really appreciate that and all his incredible hard work for our area and for the state.
You bet, yeah.
So,
Well, thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mike.
And thank you to all the people at BCTV again for helping make this possible. Till next time, this is Mike Mrowicki.